What's up guys, Lifting here, welcome back to the Path of Exile Survival Guide, episode number 7. We're continuing where we left off the last time, which was just around the crossroads. We did some corrupted zones, we got a Vol arc, we talked a little about the Vol version of Gem's work, and we're today going to head into the Chamber of Sins. Then after that, we're going to head into the Fel Shrine, and finally we're going up into the Broken Bridge here to deal with Creighton, one of the Bandit Lords. I said finally, we're of course going to deal with this stuff over here, but for the top part of the area, that's what we're going to do to be the most efficient with the experience. So how about we just head directly into the crossroads, and also I want to go into the whole Bestiary thing. Maybe we should do that first actually. Oh, he's showing up here too. Perfect, that's excellent. Then we're gonna talk to Einhar. Einhar is the beast master, so to speak, in Path of Exile. He was introduced with the Bestiary League, and when let's hear this. Let's do it.
Even a rotting carcass has its uses, yes? Then it is settled. We will make rotting carcasses and use them to produce the tools we will need to survive. But only the finest rotting carcasses will do. Einhar is not picky, but I cannot say the same for the first ones. There are a few beasts nearby, Exile. Special beasts. We will find them. We will fight them. I will catch them. You will enjoy the fruits of my labor. We will be best friends. Now, let's hunt. Together.
Yes, so basically that kind of encapsulates what it is that Einhar does. With Einhar, you capture beasts. With those beasts, you can craft stuff. Basically, you sacrifice the beasts in order to get some kind of useful affix for your gear or your character. And we can see we got the quest up here now. Find and weaken the beasts so that Einhar can capture them. Now that's for this zone here, so we might as well just do it in this zone. The beasts will show up on your map overlay, and they show up as either yellow or red, and we saw just a brief one up here, red indicators. So we should be able to see it here. So we can see there's two beasts up here. Yellow beasts are the tier 2 beasts. It's not the best ones. The red ones are the best. The red ones will give you the best crafting potential, and they also are harder to deal with. So we can see here, when we hover over it on the tooltip, top tooltip, it says new, right? That means we haven't caught any of these beasts, which makes sense because we just encountered him. When we beat the beasts into submission or take their health far enough down, Einhar will start to capture them, or he will throw a net at them and he will capture them. And they will be put into your menagerie, which is a zone we have not unlocked until now actually, or until we complete this quest. So you can see new beast captured. And we will get this one here too. And since this is also a new one, it will pop up down here. When you start to capture beasts of a similar type, then it will no longer pop up and show the result of what they do. But once you've caught a beast, you can go into... What is the button? There's too many UI buttons here, man. I can never... it's probably because we haven't unlocked the menagerie yet. But we can see we still need to capture 3 more to complete this quest. And you can make some very, very useful crafts with the beasts. It can make it much cheaper and much more efficient sometimes. Just for like the basic things that they do. But it's something that a lot of people kind of skip over, because they don't really notice it too much, they don't think too much about it, they don't realize what they can do with it. It also took me a long time to really see like the full potential of bestiary crafting. There's still a lot of things I can improve with that too. But once you get it up and running, it's a very useful way of crafting. Alright. Ooh, and we even got a leveling unique here. This one's simple rope here. Normal people want the tabula rasa. That would have been sweet too. But this one here is actually pretty good for leveling too, because it adds flat damage to spells. And even though the numbers are rather low, you need to consider that we are also at a very low level right now. So if we equip this is 127 DPS tooltip wise now, and it goes up to 152, so that's a pretty significant increase. It also gives lives, resists, etc. So it's actually a very nice leveling item. Let's find the other beasts. Here's a red one, so that one is going to be more challenging. We'll put our totem down. So Ball Arc to get the lucky damage on Arc. And there we go. And you can see like it's being stunned or whatever you call it, immobilized, and boom, it's been captured. Now we want the final one somewhere. I think right now it's because I have some beasts captured in the other league. I think it's kind of interfering with the way it's supposed to pop up and show us a new beast and such. Ordinarily you would see many more of the pop-ups when you capture them and they are new. But we'll have to live with that. Alright, let's find that last one so we can continue on with the progress too. It's probably somewhere up in on the lower or high rise. Yes, here it is, and that's a yellow one too. And then once we've completed this quest here, we will gain access to Einhar's menagerie, which is basically like a zone that holds the beasts you have. You can go in and check them out there too, like it's like your own little zoo. And you can gain access to the beast altar, which is where you can apply the crafts. And I'll try and go back now and show you how that works. Before we do that, real quick, I'm just gonna run up into the Chamber of Sins and I'm gonna grab the waypoint there so we don't have to go through this again here. But let's talk to him real quick and see what he says.
It will surprise you to learn that I am not popular. The others here are ignorant. They do not see the end coming. They are not survivors like me, or you. Before we met, I kept beasts in the encampment. They got into the grain, then the meat. They were not as picky as Einhar about where they did their business. I learned that rowers do not digest rower meat very well. So I moved them to a new location, the menagerie. Far away. It is a secret place. This is where we will perform the ritual for the first ones. I have built a blood altar for such a purpose. Do you wish to see it? Tell Einhar. You will be taken there.
Yeah, we do that. So we can visit it here. Straight from here. We can view our bestiary too. This is what I wanted to open before. We've unlocked that now. So basically, together with your achievement and challenges tab, which is on your H key. This is where your prophecies will be too, as far as I remember. You get this book here. Where you can check out which beasts you have captured. And you can see that we have the Death Face, the Terrifying, right? We can see which affixes he had then. And then we can see that it says recipes you've unlocked, create currency items, a stack of 8 chromatic orbs. So it's part of this, in order to create that recipe, this monster will be part of that recipe. So we'll have to sacrifice that to create that. I'll show you that once we get to the altar. And then you can of course just go through all the recipes here that we have available, and you can see what it requires here. So if we wanted to create a jewel, I think it's a unique jewel, yeah. We would want a specific beast like the Creighton squid, and then we would want any rare beast captured. So it doesn't matter which one, as long as it's a rare plus that specific one. That would allow us to then sacrifice those 4, and it would give us a unique jewel. It'd be very useful. But as I said, it's better if I just run up here and we do that real quick. We'll also get the Syndicate on our way, and then we'll go back to the beast also. And then I think we may be able to craft maybe a flask upgrade or something like that. We'll use our Ball Arc up here if we can get some other minions out. And we have lucky arc damage. There we go. That was Hillock going down. And
Making a new friend I am.
Hillock and Jorgen become trusted fortification intelligence. That is...
Told me a few things already, you know.
Okay. Like, since in the beginning, when I made these episodes, that was at the start of Betrayal League, the meta has changed slightly. Like, the opinions have varied a lot on whether or not you want them to be rivalry or have rivalries, like the red lines between each other on the board, or if you want them to have green lines, so trusted. In the beginning, the common consensus was that having them trusted would be beneficial, linking them that way. Because they would have a tendency to spawn together then. But recently the common conception is that rivalries are actually better, because with rivalries you get more options to rank them up, to kill someone and rank them up and gain favor. And this is something I'm currently testing out at the moment, so I'm not gonna really say what I believe yet is the best. I used to do the trusted, get green lines between them, but I'm gonna try the other one for a while on some of my other characters to figure out what I think works best. But it seems like common consensus now is that you want rivalries instead of having them trusted. Spend our skill point. Ooh, and not that many levels, then we can get our ancestral bond. So once you get into the Chamber of Sins, the waypoint is always in the middle of the zone. So you typically want to run down here, and then, depending on the layout, of course, do what you can, but to try and get into the middle of the room. And I think it's in that room in there. We'll use our Quicksilver. And I need to remember to use our Flame Dash too. We got a stash here. And Orb of Fusing, that's nice, we'll take it. Another one too, very nice. And as I said, we are now in the, this is the middle chamber. And one thing there is to know about this is that the waypoint here, the waypoint can spawn over there, 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 and there. And a tip is to know that the waypoint always indicates which direction you need to go to get to the next part of the zone, so to get to the Chamber of Sins level 2. And to demonstrate that, like you can see, we could also go over here, for instance. And if the waypoint was over here, we would have to do that. But if we follow the waypoint like this here, you can see we get to the Chamber of Sins level 2. We're not going to go down there right now. We're going to go back to the menagerie so I can show you that. There's a lot to show with bestiary crafting. We're just going to touch upon like the very basics here in the beginning. But of course, as we get more beasts, more powerful beasts, we'll go into it. And let's just, we don't want to hear that again. It was just the beginning to get you guys an idea of what Einhar was a type of guy. So this is the blood altar here. In the blood altar, this is where you do your sacrifice. So let's see, what do we have here? We can also hide unusable. So we had the Sakawine Roar, that's the one I showed you before, a stack of 8 chromatic orbs. That's because we have that one, that specific beast, and then we have some other rare creatures. Those were the yellow ones, right? So if we do this here, this is automatically selected rare creature, rare creature, rare creature, and this specific creature. If we press craft now, these monsters are going to respawn inside this arena. We have to deal with them, but we will get 8 chromatic orbs. Let's do that just for the sake of showing it. And also we can use the chromatic orbs. It's a pretty decent deal for us here. Craft. So now you have to, of course, survive. And sometimes these encounters can be pretty nasty because you don't have that much room to move around on. And some of these monsters are already very powerful, and that's also why you can see their affixes described. When you hover over the monsters, you can see what it is that you're going up against, so you don't have to worry too much about going up against something that... or so you can prepare, I guess, for it, in case you need to. Or have someone help you, for that matter. Alright, we got it. Boom. And then when we open the blood altar here, we can see we have 8 chromatic orbs now. So pretty sweet. Now, a thing I find very useful for this here is in the beginning, like for just any general use, is the well, fully linked 6 socket rare. That would be nice if you just want to create a 6 link rare chest. And sometimes it can actually be a lot cheaper. So the thing is, you can also buy these beasts on PoE trade. In general, these are not unlocked in the beginning of a league, but then 3-4 leagues into the league, they will make it so that you can start to trade the beasts that you have in your menagerie, which I'm going to go over and show you in just a second. So let's say you want to create a fully linked 6 socket rare. Now, it doesn't say if it's a chest or a weapon. That's one thing to consider here. So it may either be a 2-handed weapon or a chest, right? But you can then go to the trades website, and you can search for Saka Wine Vulture, and you can buy that. If people have it for sale, of course. And in general, I find that doing this is typically rather cheap for what you get, because not a lot of people are doing this. So there's a higher supply than there is a demand for it. So the prices are not too bad. But the one I wanted to show you was the flask mods. These here can be very, very useful because first of all, they're pretty cheap in general. You just need rare creatures. You don't need anything specific, right? The off-warding suffix makes it so that when you press your flask, you become immune to curses. And when you do maps, for instance, at higher levels, some maps have the implicit mod that it will curse you. You will constantly be cursed in there. But if you have a curse removal flask or an off-warding flask, then that curse will not influence you. So off-warding is typically a very useful suffix to get on your flasks when you go into mapping. It just makes it... There's less stuff you have to worry about and concern yourself about. Grounding, that's the one that prevents you from getting shocked. That can be useful too. I don't use it that much myself, but it's great if, for instance, you're using it with the Vessel of Vinctar flask, which is a very powerful flask that can give you a lot of leech, and it can give you a lot of damage, and it can shock the enemy, but it also shocks you. But if you then use a grounding flask together with it, you won't become shocked, for instance. Of Curing removes poison. I don't really use that much myself. Poison is probably the least useful, but there are situations like if you're doing a lot of overlapping and you don't have the Pantheon that prevents you from being poisoned, then it can be nice. But in general, poison removal is not that important. You have the staunching, that's what we talked about in the other video, in the previous video. We got a flask of staunching, it's the one that removes bleed. In general, you always want to have one flask that removes bleed, unless you have another way of removing bleed, or you benefit from the bleed. There's a few niche things that does that. Of Dousing is the one that removes Ignite. I don't find that to be that useful, to be honest. Like, Ignites are not too hard to deal with in the game, as long as your resistances are capped and such. And then of Heat, that's the one we had over here, the one that removes Freeze and Chill and makes you immune to it. So for me personally, I always want to have a flask that has the off heat suffix, and I want one that has off warding and off staunching. If I have those, or at least some other way to deal with these things, then you're pretty well set. You don't need it this early on in the game, but at least when you start mapping, then you want to have these, in my opinion at least. Now, another really cool thing about the Bestiary craft is that you can see this one here. It says open a portal to Sakawal's Roost. Basically, this is if you get the Sakawine Rex and then 3 rares, you can open a portal into another realm, and in there you can go up against one of the 4, what should we call them, Bestiary unique bosses, which can drop specific Bestiary unique items, such as the Venomous Weave set. I think the Venomous Weave might be the body armor itself, or maybe it's the helmet specifically. Either way, it doesn't matter, but the Venomous set can be very powerful if you combine them together, and it can be very valuable items too. But of course, the bosses in here can also be challenging, and you need a character that's prepared for it. It also unlocks the aspect of the avian and spider skill. I'm pretty sure this is due to me having unlocked on my other character. I'm I'd be surprised if you have this in the beginning, but either way, aspect of the avian, aspect of the spider, there's aspect of the cat too, and then there's aspect of the crab. These are, I would compare them to auras or heralds. Basically, it's an ability you get. You can craft it onto your item. So let's say I had the rares or beasts that I would need for it. I could craft it onto my ring, for instance. This would grant me the aspect of the avian skill, which I could then use down here, and it would preserve some of my mana, and it would grant, you know, some kind of beneficial bonus, like the aspect of the cat, for instance. I can't remember these probably, but aspect of the cat gives you attack and cast speed, I believe. It cycles. It has two cycles. One of them gives you attack speed, I believe. Maybe some cast speed and some damage, and the other cycle gives you increased critical strike. So they can be very, very powerful and useful. And not so many are actually using them either. Again, because a lot of people are ignoring the whole bestiary thing. And I will gladly admit to having done that a lot in the past to myself. But once you start using it, it's really, really nice. It's very powerful. And typically rather cheap to get something good out of it. But we don't have any other thing right now. We don't have any beasts we can try and craft more with here, but we got our 8 chromatic orbs. So, well, that's all good. That's what we wanted. But let me try and show you the menagerie real quick. We also completed his quest, of course. Yeah. So up here you have the menagerie depths, and there's like a couple of entrances here. It's because the menagerie have like these different wings where different types of monsters reside. Like, imagine them like Pokemons. You have in this case a saint Pokemon. We are in the menagerie saints, and the other one would be a wild Pokemon, or, you know. So here, if I catch the Sakawal, first of the skies, it will be in here. The monster will be captured and it will be in here, and I can see how many I have of them here. It's these, like, this zone in itself is not that useful. It's not really something that has any impact on your gameplay. It's mostly for the, I guess, visual feel to it, that you can go and see which beasts you have. You can click these here and it will open up your Rexes, or at least it should be. And as you can see, like, it's blank because we don't have any of those. But let's see, I should, yeah, if I were to log over to my other character, for instance, where I've been playing this more, there would be beasts inside of these here. I'm not really sure if we still have any beasts at all. I think we sacrificed. We should probably have one beast somewhere in one of them, because we only sacrificed 3 or 4, but we captured 5. Either way, you get it. They'll be shown in there, and you can go and check them out if you like that. So from the menagerie, you can also travel to your hideout. I can press my macro for that. You can also travel back once you have the menagerie unlocked. I'll press my button for that too. F5 for my hideouts and F6 for my menagerie. This only works if you've set up the macro for it, and I showed you that in the last video too if you want to. It saves you a bit of time instead of having to go to the waypoint and click, or instead of having to type menagerie. Then you can click a single button, right? But let's continue. Chamber of Sins, and we'll go to Chamber of Sins level 2. But before we go to Chamber of no, actually we will be going to Chamber of Sins level 2, because that is where the trial is. And here you can see the waypoint now points in this direction, whereas it was previously over here. That means we have to go in this way here, and it's because it's a new zone. I believe zones, at least the way it used to be, it was 15 minutes, I believe, and then a zone resets the layout. Another way you can do that is if you are farming a zone specifically, then of course it sucks if you clear it and there's no more monsters, but you still want to do the zone, like the blood aqueducts people are doing. Then you can click, you see the entrance here, you hold down control on your keyboard, and then you can click new. It will create a new one and reset it, not to what it was before, but randomize it, just create a new zone with new monsters. So control while you click the the entrance. So we can see there's a Syndicate down here too. And also, in general, when you get into the Chamber of Sins level 2, because you want the trial, at least the first time, right on your character, it's important to know that the trial typically is somewhere over here in that direction. Whereas the quest objective that you have to do, where is it? Okay, I guess we didn't get the quest objective, but it doesn't matter either. We can still complete it, but it's called Intruders in Black. The Intruders in Black, however, on the map is typically somewhere up here, something like that. So we'll first go down here and get the trial, and then we'll go up and grab the Intruders in Black, and we'll kill the Syndicate on our way. Hey, and there is a strongbox too. One of the nice things about Arc is also that the whole progression that this skill provides is just really fun to use, because the way it works is that, let's try and use a wall arc here actually. Oh, I think I got stunned right as I used the wall arc, which meant that I didn't get it off, but I still spent the souls for it. That's one thing to consider too. Stun, however, is a rather advanced mechanic. We'll talk about it later once it gets more relevant, but yeah, just know that sometimes you can get stunned. And the thing is, the stun animation is very, very short, and it's not very obvious, so many times if new players, they don't know what's going on. Like, they didn't get their cast off, that's all they can see. I think they should make it more visible.
Don't snuff my candle,
so Leo and Tor become trusted.
Access to information you might find valuable.
Ah,
just let me get in contact.
Sure,
with
I mean, why not? I just don't want them to become trusted too much. Because we're trying the whole rivalry thing, but the other thing kind of sucked. So we'll still go down here. This is where we want to go up towards when we have the trial completed. But I think what I was trying to say with Arc is that one of the reasons a lot of people also like the skill, besides it being very strong, is that the way it scales Arc, it's fun in the sense that not only does it get more damage as it levels up, but as you can see right now, it shows the damage we have on it, but it also says chains 4 times. That amount of chains goes up as you level it, and chains makes it so that it can jump onto further enemies further away, and below that you can see it says 15% more damage for each remaining chain. So that means that the more chains that the Arc potentially can do, the more damage it also gains. This is what was changed from it previously, where it was kind of a terrible single target skill. Once they added this here, suddenly this made it a much more viable single target skill, because you had a lot of upfront damage if there was a potential for the Arc to be able to chain right. But it feels great when you get those levels. I guess that's just what I'm trying to say, because you really notice when there are extra chains on your stuff. So trial here, we don't want to die here. The best thing, guys, don't be too afraid of the lab traps and such. This is a very common thing, and people like they freeze and oh man, and then this happens. They I will have to run back, and then they follow it back and they almost die or they die. The best thing is always just, if you go in against an area with traps, just keep running unless you absolutely know that if the next step will get you trapped or something like that, or if you can wait. But it's the worst thing you can generally do with traps is to stop up, and because then you start to hesitate, and when you're staying still, that's when you'll get hit more. So Trial of Ascendancy, yes, we have the one in the prison, we have the one in the Chamber of Sins. This one here is for the Fel Shrine Ruins, which we will go down and get after we've done the quest in this area here too. And we of course need to get these here too. Once all of these are unlocked, we can do the labyrinth. We'll take the portal back. It takes us to the entrance of the trial. And now we started over here as we got into the zone. As I said, trial is typically in this area. Sometimes it's a little further down and such. Depends on the layout, right? But then for the quest, we want to run up towards the northwest, I guess. Yeah. Alright. We got a shrine in here. I'm not sure, I can't remember if we talked about shrines, but basically, if not, I'm gonna quickly reiterate, they're not too complex. They were introduced in a league called... Actually, I can't remember, maybe it was Anarchy. Maybe if you guys are watching out there, maybe you can remember. If you do, please type it below. It doesn't matter too much either. They were introduced as a league mechanic, and they would be in each zone, and they simply provide a temporary buff to your character. This here is an acceleration shrine, and it's a pretty fun one. Basically, it gives you a ton of movement speed, cast speed, and attack speed. We're gonna get a skill point here first, go into the totem and brain damage, and then pick this up here, and then we'll zoom our way into the next brain malfunction, the next quest. I actually recently died to one of these shrines because there's a lot of monsters typically spawning around shrines, and that shrine was a divine shrine, which is a very rare shrine. Very rare. It makes the monsters invincible when they're close to it, and I wasn't expecting that. So I got a lot of damage taken in because I didn't kill him fast enough, and I died on my hardcore character. So we're back, or up here in the top now. This is where the quest objective is. You will meet Fidelitas. Fidelitas deals... or maybe it's Fidelitas, I can't remember. It's actually, you can hear it in the word, infidelity, fidelity. This here, according to the lore, this guy is actually named Raul, and he is a former lover to Maligaro. He was Maligaro's gay lover. He deals a lot of lightning damage, and depending on your lightning resist, he can actually be pretty dangerous unless you are, you know, higher level or something like that. Racers, since they are, you know, trying to get us quickly to the areas, they will sometimes be lower levels at these points, and they can be dangerous if they do it, because if you get hit by the lightning damage, maybe we can see it up here. If he does it, I'm not sure if he's actually going to do it. But if he gets a crit in, he will shock us, and when we are shocked, we will take extra damage from any other damage he delivers. So if you get shocked with a big hit and then hits again, that can take a lot of damage down, but otherwise not too bad. So you kill him, we click the strange device where something strange has been going on. We'll get the baleful gem, and basically what we did here was we got the gem, and then we saved Elena. All right, we don't really care about talking. You don't need to talk to her either. You can just pour it out, and she will be returned to the forest encampment, and we can then talk to her here. Now this is Grice that wanted us to do this, the Intruders in Black, I'm pretty sure, and that's why he also is the one that gives us the quest reward for this. And this quest here, the Intruders in Black, the one we just did, is always going to be the quest that grants you a Herald. Depending on what class you're playing, the Herald rewards might be a little different, but in general you can always get Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ash, and Herald of Ice. And then recently they introduced Herald of Purity, and I guess we can also get Brain Recall in Enduring Cry here. Since we're not using Brains, we're not going to use Enduring Cry. We want something that scales best with our build, but the thing is, Heralds, they're kind of like auras, except that they work on your character. It's not... An aura works on everyone around you, right? It's like it buffs your party, whereas the Herald works on your character only. But it still reserves mana like an aura does. Any Herald reserves 25% mana, unless you use some kind of unique that changes that, but that's the baseline typical. So for us, we can choose Herald of Ash, Herald of Ice, and Herald of Thunder. Now Herald of Ash would not really work too well for us, because the way Herald of Ash is, you probably guessed it, it's the fire equivalent of them, whereas Thunder is lightning and Herald of Ice is ice or frost. Herald of Ash gains 15% of your physical damage as extra fire damage. So if you're playing a character that is physical damage, it's able to take that and scale that and make it and apply it as fire damage too. So that's great if you're using something like that. Like Blade Vortex is nice with Herald of Ash, or an attack skill such as Sunder or Cyclone or something like that. However, we're not doing that. We don't have any physical damage, so it would not work for us. Another thing, I guess this is also one thing to... they changed this recently, but it also gives more spell fire damage. So if you're playing just a build that uses fire spells like Incinerate or Flame Blast or something like that, then it also works great for these types of things. And it then applies that secondary effect. One thing that these heralds all have in common is that they have a way of scaling damage. They provide damage to your belt in some form or another. But then they also have a secondary effect. And for Herald of Ash, that is the last line you can see there. It says base burning damage is 25% of overkill damage. So if you kill a monster while Herald of Ash is active on a skill that supports it, like let's say Flame Blast again, then 25% of that overkill damage is applied as a burn effect afterwards. So when that monster dies, there's a burn effect that will burn any other monster in the vicinity. You can then use Elemental Proliferation to have that spread or something like that. That's a support gem in case you don't know. But that's the secondary effect. If we take something like Herald of Ice, which adds just cold damage to your attacks and to your spells, which is fine. It's not discriminating between an attack and a spell. It works on both. But the secondary effect here on the Herald of Ice is that, let me see if I can find the line here, just so I say it correct. Yeah. If you shatter an enemy, they explode and deal AoE cold damage to enemies near them. So if you have a build, any cold build for instance, and you are crit based, or if you shatter via an elemental ailment application or something like that, then the enemy will explode, dealing cold damage around it. And this can be very, very useful because this actually deals quite a lot of damage and is very beneficial in helping deal with the stragglers of the monsters that you didn't necessarily target, but they explode all out in a big area, and they take care of, or well, they die because of the exploration, because of the explosion. Herald of Ice in general is a very nice herald to add to almost any build if you can make it work, to help increase clear speed. But mostly if you can guarantee that you at least somewhat reliably apply a freeze so that the enemies can shatter. An enemy will only be able to shatter if they're frozen. So in order to freeze a monster, you need to deal cold damage, and that cold damage needs to be a crit, or you can have like notes in the skill tree such as Fingers of Frost here. You can see 10% chance to freeze enemies, and that can make them explode via Herald of Ice. I mean, if the damage is enough to get them to that point. I know this is a little complicated, and yeah, so just try it out a little, and if you have any questions, just feel free to ask them below too. I'll probably go more into it later too. But what we want here, however, is Herald of Thunder. We could also use Herald of Ice, that's okay. But since our build is scaling lightning damage specifically, then we are going to get more out of this gem here, because the lightning damage on this gem is going to be scaled via the lightning increases and modifiers that we have in our skill tree. So when we are to pick up Heart of Thunder, you can see the increased lightning damage here. This applies to the damage that is being added via Herald of Thunder. It would not really do anything for Herald of Ice. The damage from Herald of Ice would still be nice, it would still apply, but it's not being scaled as efficiently. But still there are lightning builds that will use Herald of Ash because of the shatter effect. For Herald of Thunder, that of course also has a secondary effect. And basically that's if you kill a shocked enemy, then lightning bolts will fly down from the heavens. It's like you're a divine intervention. You're striking down your foes with lightning bolts around you, dealing damage to them. This is, if you're scaling lightning damage, this can be a nice amount of damage too, but it's probably not as useful, in my opinion, as the secondary effect from Herald of Ash or Herald of Ice. But for our build, Herald of Thunder makes the most sense. And we don't really need the secondary effects from these for our setup. Also because we are going to be using totems. And when you use a herald, the secondary effects from the heralds do not apply for totems. The damage will still go through. You will still get the damage from them if you have them activated, but the secondary effect does not work. That only comes from your own character. And that's also why Herald of Thunder is something we'll be using now, because it gives us a nice boost. But we don't want to use it later because the amount of damage that it gives is nice and all, but we're not really fully benefiting from it, and it's not really worth preserving the amount of mana for it when we don't get more out of it. We will be using the Wrath Aura, however, the one that reserves 50% of our mana, and then we'll put that in an Essence Worm Ring so it doesn't reserve any mana. I'm giving you a lot of information right now. I'm sorry if this is too overwhelming right now. But either way, we're going to pick this up for now. And then we are going to socket it into... Let's see what we want to do. Let's say we had another wand that gave +1 to level of lightning gems. You can put the Herald of Thunder in there too. It will give you more damage and such. So it works for any type of lightning gem, but right now we don't really care too much about that. So we're just going to put Herald of Thunder in there. What was this? This is our original arc. Actually, we're going to put our original arc over here and level that. So once it reaches 20, we can do a vendor recipe that will give it 20 quality too, but de-level it. I'll show you once we get there. But in short, what you need to do, you need to take a level 20 gem, then a gem cutter's prism, trade that with the vendor. That will de-level the gem to level 1, but give it 20 quality. Sometimes that can be good. It's not always the best idea to do, but it can be a way of going about it. Some gems benefit more from having the quality getting applied to it and then leveling it up again, or the other way around. It also makes it so that we can corrupt it at a later stage if we want to try and get a level 21 gem, so we have an extra. Because the one we use right now, Vol is already corrupted. We cannot apply quality to this. We cannot corrupt it again, so this can never be turned into a level 21 gem. Okay, that was a lot of info. We are going to go back to the crossroads now. And then we're going to run down to the Fel Shrine. We're going to unlock the trial down there too. And then that's pretty much it there. There's an optional quest you can do down there too, which grants you 2. I think it's 2, it may be 1. But I think it's 2 respec points. So if you want to save the regret orbs and just do that, you can do that. But we don't really care about that. So we have our Herald of Thunder. We can see that once we activate it here, the damage gets applied to it. And also, you can see the mana reserved here. But the thing is, we're going mind over matter. We want to have as much mana available to us as possible, so we can use that for defense. Again, this is one of the reasons it's not really worth it for us to use Herald of Thunder in the long run. But for now, when we don't have mind over matter and we can't sustain it, might as well get the extra damage. And since we don't use totems yet, why not, right? There is a Syndicate thing here. Let's do that while we... It's transportation. And I think you can see it now. Let me try and see. Do we see the Herald of Thunder proccing? No, not right now. It's only when we shock something. Shock is the ailment effect you can get from... Oh, we're not really seeing it. I guess I'll be able to show it to you later, or when it procs. I think it might be the one that was going down there. It's not that visible unless you use some MTX, then it looks a little better. I guess we can do that. Let's put on MTX because then you get a better idea of when it's proccing. So we go to our Herald of Thunder. And the one I typically think looks the best is the Gore Herald. And we should be able to see it better then. So we can see rank to Tora, Leo loses all ranks, Tora and Leo becomes rivals. That's okay actually. Or we can destroy... We're going to do that. We're going to try and make them rivals here. And she will get rank, so that's good. He will lose rank, but it doesn't matter too much. We don't care really about Leo. He doesn't really provide anything we want. And in general, the ones over here in fortification and transportation, we just want the bad ones over here so we can get the good ones over here, because this is where the rewards are if you put the right ones over here. I talked a little about it in the earlier episodes, but we kind of want to get it that fled into research or intervention. He's good over here too. Jorgen is good over at intervention because he can get, I think it's Bestiary scarabs. Actually, let me show you that. Here, one nice way you can do it if you use Mercury Trade, which is a tool I use quite a lot. If you use that, I'm only going to show it for this feature now. We're going to go into this software later because it's very useful for trading too. But if you're using Mercury Trade, this is like the bar down here. When you click the CIG help, it opens up this board here. And what it shows is the rewards for each syndicate member if they are placed at the relevant safe houses. So this one here, the T here, it stands for transportation safe house. This is the fortification safe house. This is the research safe house. And this is the intervention safe house. So as you can see, transportation, fortification, research, and intervention. What it then shows, let's take Jorgen, for instance. We're talking about him. We're going to find him up here. Jorgen, there we go. We can see that if he's in transportation, he will give talismans when we then raid the safe house. He's going to drop some kind of talisman for us, right? If he's in fortification, associated with that, he will give us bestiary items. If he is in research, he will give amulet to talisman level. So you can take an amulet and turn it into a talisman, which can have these specific, unique, implicit bonuses, which can be good, but is, yeah. And then if you put him in intervention, you can see that he will give bestiary scarabs. This is what I'm interested in. Scarabs is not something we will get to use yet, but basically scarabs are a form of item that if you link it with a map, when you go into a map, it will give a certain guaranteed reward. In this case, it will make it so that we are guaranteed to find beasts in the map that we can then use for bestiary crafting, as we did a little earlier. So that can be useful, and also because these sell for a decent amount. The best ones we kind of want is something like Chimeria. We want him at intervention, you can see that here, because he will give sulfite scarabs. And sulfite scarabs opens access to the mine. It gives us sulfite so we can go into the mine, which is something we'll get to do in Act 4 for the first time. I'm looking forward to showing you that. And these sell for quite a lot too, because people want these so they can get quick sulfite so they can keep doing the mine. Gravicus drops divination card scarabs. These can sell for a decent amount too. Haku strongbox scarabs, basically making it so that there's a lot of strongbox when you go into the map. This can be very useful too, especially for people who look for diviners strongboxes. It that flat breach scarabs, very nice on intervention, but the current there's a lot of people doing it right now, so the value of it has gone down a little. But getting him into research as the leader can allow you to upgrade 2 breach stones, which are items that allow access to another plane where there's some bosses in, and it can give a ton of experience. It's the fastest way of leveling right now. So if you get him in there, you can upgrade these breach stones to what's called pure breach stones, and that's where the real experience is. Like, you can get to level 100 pretty damn fast if you make use of this. So that's why they have a lot of value. But breach scarabs are very good too. So either on intervention and research is pretty good with him. J. Anus, we don't really use that too much, but Ren can be pretty damn good to have on intervention too. Cartography scarabs and Tora Harbinger scarabs are good too. So typically what I do, I want Chimeria on intervention, I want Gravicus on intervention if I can, I want Haku on intervention, I want It That Fled on researcher intervention, I want Jorgen on intervention, I want Rin on intervention, Tora on intervention, And then everyone besides that, I just want to see if I can move over here to transportation or fortification, because then we can lock these, but it's it's further down the line. But basically, you can prevent the dudes that are aligned to certain safe houses from spawning if you do it the right way. So you can only get the ones that you want to have, the ones I just mentioned, for instance, to spawn, and then level up the safe houses here faster so you can go in and get the rewards. Now, one thing to, of course, understand when I said that I wanted this and this and this and this on intervention, you can only have 4 members on each safe house, as far as I know, at least. So you can't always rely on getting exactly who you want onto that safe house, but as long as you try and move the ones that makes the most sense onto research and intervention, then every time you do that, you're going to have a nice amount of profit or benefit from doing so. All right, let us continue onwards. So we're gonna give Tora a rank here, and she's on fortification. I would love to have her over here instead, but that's not the way it's going to be this time with Tora. We would have to raid the safe house or get her some kind of rivalry onto her in order to be able to move her. But for now, we're just going to go with this here and create a rivalry, which may give us a chance to remove her later. Yeah.
Is it really in your best interest
And Leo,
to piss off a bloody arena fighter?
we'll just go with the transportation intelligence.
You're a smart
I'm looking
one.
forward to showing you guys the master syndicate or master hideout. Fel Shrine Ruins. So in Fel Shrine Ruins, this used to be a zone that you would farm back in the day, because it was rather safe compared to the Act 3, which was the final act back then. There was a lot of dangerous monsters there, so you liked that as like a safe way. If you were playing hardcore, it was a good place to farm to get some experience. There used to be a lot more monsters here. But when you enter the zone, you just follow the road all the way down to the southeast, and eventually you're going to get to the church. Now also what you're seeing here, I think we saw it right before. That is the Herald of Thunder you see here, the one that falls down from the sky. That's the effect of Herald of Thunder. It's much easier to see that way. And as you can see, it can deal some damage. You can make builds around Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice specifically, popularly called the auto bombers, which basically makes it so that the Herald of Thunder procs the Herald of Ice and the other way around, and then you can just run through it all and rely on the heralds to kill everything. It's actually pretty fun, but comes with the downside of typically being pretty bad at single target. Alright, so we found Fel Shrine Ruins, grabbed the waypoints, and in the Fel Shrine Ruins we want to find the I think this may be a dead end. Going down, okay. We want to find the trial, and it's always on level 1. The trial is on level 1. If you go to level 2, that's where you can complete the quest to get a respec point. But we're not interested in that. So we'll stick to level 1, and typically for the trial I've found, in my experience at least, when you enter up here, the trial of ascendancy is typically always like, how do I show this, like up in this. Let's say we're standing here, then the trial would always be in the top part of it. If you go down here in this direction, this is where you'll find the entrance to level 2. Sometimes it's down here, but generally up in this part of it, you'll find the trial of ascendancy on level 1. Remember that, level 1. If you go to level 2, you've gone so far. We'll grab the lever. You don't need to click that switch there. We'll just run through it. And we don't need to click that either. And this, and there we go.
To damnation with you.
Shine.
Alright, you can see we have all 3 now. We need the last 3 from the crematorium, the catacombs, and then the hedge maze. Or I think it's called that still. We'll go back, and then, I mean, we just have to go back now, so we'll use a portal. And, or you could log out if you wanted to save that, right? And then we want to go back up to the crossroads, and we want to deal with Creighton, the first of the bandit lords. For our build, we want to kill all the bandit lords because we don't benefit that greatly from any of the particular rewards that they give. And what you can do is that, in case you're completely new and confused about the bandit lords, is that each bandit lord has a reward that he will give your character if you kill the other bandit lords for him. So for Creighton, if you help him kill Elena and what is his name? I don't know, I can't remember it right now. But the guy in the wet lanes. Then he will grant you cast speed, attack speed, and movement speed. And in general, like, Creighton is typically always a bad choice. Like, the reward he grants is pretty bad compared to the alternatives you can get from the other bandit lords. Elena will give you flat mana regen, she will give you 15 to all elemental resistances, and she will give you some crit multiplier. It can be great if you're playing like a mind over matter crit based build. And the other that I can't remember right now, it will give you life regen, 20% physical damage, and Oak is his name. Oak, he will give 2% fist mitigation too. Oak in general is not that good of a choice either. Elena is by far the best if you play a build that makes sense. Oak can make sense for a few builds that really benefits from the life regen or fist damage. Like lots of lab builds, for instance, can benefit from it. Life regen is typically good in there if you're playing like something that also deals physical damage. Can be useful. But Creighton in general just always terrible. But the thing is, you don't have to help any of them. You can simply just kill all of them, and that will give you 2 extra passive points.
Even more with a little deconstruction.
It's just interrogating. And the thing to consider here, if you can't really figure out what you should choose, first of all, there's not really any right or wrong here, as long as you pick something that benefits your build. So if you're playing a build that can benefit from some mana regen, you can benefit for some crit multiplier, then Elena might be a good choice, right? Because anyone can use that if they're playing that type of build, and the extra resist she gives, that's always beneficial. If you're playing a build that uses physical damage, then Oak might be a decent choice if you can see like a meaning in having the extra life regen too. But the thing is, you need to consider where or when you decide on this, look at your skill tree and think about it this way. If you choose to help the bandit lords, that means that you will not get 2 extra skill points. If you kill them all, you'll get 2 skill points. So the question then becomes, those 2 skill points, will they be able to grant you a higher benefit? Maybe you're able to pick up, let's say you could pick up these 2 here then, right? Instead, will that benefit be higher than what the bandit lord can give you? Or maybe you can pick up a jewel down here. Jewels can be powerful, they can grant a lot of stuff too. So it's not really that there's a right or wrong, as long as you pick something that makes sense for the build, that can scale something in the build. But it's about picking the most efficient one. So just think about what those other 2 skill points could have been used on if you decide to help them, or the other way around. Okay? For us, we're gonna kill them all, because the most efficient for us will be to get the skill points, because those 2 skill points are going to be stronger than whatever these bandits can provide for reward. Alright, when you're in the Broken Bridge to find Creighton, you just follow the roads. I guess it's the nice thing about deck 2. Like, most of it is just, it's paved with road. You'll encounter the waypoint on the way. Make sure to grab that. I guess it's not too important. You don't really have other stuff to do up here in this area. You won't be coming back unless you are going to help him, of course. Now, if you know if you already know that you're going to help a certain bandit, then you want to make sure that that is the bandit you interact with at the latest. Deal with the other ones, kill them first, and then go to the bandit. that you're going to help, because let's say I wanted to help Creighton up here. Then I go and talk to him, and I can say I can help him or I can kill him, right? If I help him, he will tell me to go kill the other ones and then come back. So I might as well kill the other ones first and then come up and tell him that I'll help him, which will then grant me the reward. It just saves you a bit of time. But we're gonna kill him, and as you can see, this is what we would get if we were to help him. So movement speed, chance to dodge attacking hits, and increased attack and cast speed. Now it all sounds nice, and it is good. Like, who wouldn't want this? But consider that a few skill points can provide just as much, if not better. Like, let's say you were 2 points away from Harrier. That's 9% attack speed, 9 cast, 5 movement speed, and that's a single point. That other point could then maybe have been used to unlock a jewel, which also grants attack and cast speed. So the amount that Creighton provides, it's just not very useful. I recently played a build where I actually helped Creighton, but that's because that build is 100% focused on just having high movement speed, and I only want it to do low level content. So for that very, very niche thing, I helped Creighton, but in general, it's terrible. It's a terrible choice. We're gonna kill him. Poor Creighton. Forever doomed to be the last pick in gym class. Alright, so he's down, and the other bandits will know that. So, we'll go back to Forest Encampment. And then, from here, let's grab we'll go with the totem attack and cast speed. Now these, since we don't really use the totems yet, except for the freezing pulse totem, we don't benefit that much from them, but it's something we'll have to accept until we get into an ancestral bond. However, as soon as something is linked to the spell totem, anything that scales totem damage will work. So freezing pulse here. Let me show you, can I illustrate this better? We have freezing pulse as a gem here, right? Now, if I were to choose totem damage here, or attack and cast speed, then that would not do anything for freezing pulse, right? Because it's not a totem skill. However, as soon as I link freezing pulse to spell totem, then freezing pulse inherently becomes a totem gem, and it scales off of the totem nodes, such as this one here or these down here. And that's why it will make sense for Arc 2 when we start using that in a couple of levels. So Ancestral Bond, we'll go for that. So right now, yeah, it will benefit our freezing pulse a little, but we don't use it that much. Herald of Thunder level up. The thing about Herald of Thunder, it will always have, now it says 27 mana reserve. What did I link it with? Where is it? Oh, okay, so one thing to consider here, and this happens a lot too. Heralds, as I said, they always have 25% mana reservation, but let's say you have an item such as this one here. It says Socketed Gems are supported by level 5 elemental proliferation. That means that the support gem that this actually is, it applies the mana multiplier to the Herald of Thunder, increasing the mana cost of it, and that's why it says that it reserves 27%. So if there's some times where you're thinking, why the fuck can I not reserve my 2 heralds and my anger aura, which should be 50% for the anger aura and 25 for each herald? That's 100% right. You should be able to do that. Oftentimes that's because people have missed that they may have linked the Herald of Thunder to a support gem, or that it's in an item that has an implicit support gem. So keep that in mind. For us right now, that it costs 27 is not a big deal, right? But we could just move it over here and then it doesn't preserve anything. With elemental proliferation, we can spread the shock, but it's not too important. The next thing we would want to do is that now that we've done this up here, would be to go and deal with the Weaver here in the Western Forest. And we also need to deal with Elena, one of the other bandit lords. And we need to deal with the Way Forward quest, which will give us an extra skill point. However, the video is running, it's already been going on for a while, so I think we're gonna end it here, boys. I think this was an episode with a lot of information. I hope it wasn't too much at times. As I said, feel free to ask questions below. I do check them. yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. Share this with your friends if you think it will benefit them, if they could learn something, and then get them properly into Path of Exile. It is really the complexity of Path of Exile that often scares people away, but once you take it step for step, it's just such an amazing game. Yeah. Anything else? I'm bad at answers. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?